Hey everyone, it's Mike here from The Art of Guitar. I thought of a new concept. I thought it'd be really fun to put together a series of videos called Pulling Rank, where all I would do is I would take albums that I've heard in the past that I maybe didn't give my full attention to, and go through every song and then rank them in order from my least favorite to my most favorite. And while I do that, I'll actually learn parts of the songs. I'll try to reminisce about what I remember back when I first listened to them. Should be a lot of fun, and I feel like I'm going to catch up on a lot of stuff I may have skimmed over back in the day. I chose Kiss Love Gun for a couple reasons. The other day was Kiss's last show. You never know with those guys. I think they're going to go virtual and go on forever. You know, that totally doesn't shock me. It seems like something Kiss would do. So I thought this would be a very fitting album to start with. Plus, I love Love Gun. A lot of people agree that it's one of Kiss's best albums. So let's go ahead and start with number 10. And this one's probably not going to be a huge surprise, but it's the cover song on the album called Then She Kissed Me. I remember getting the album, and the first thing I did was I read all the song titles. That's just what you did when you had records back in the day. Then you'd take out the record, you'd read the inside sleeve. Sometimes it had the lyrics, sometimes it didn't. But this one, I read the back and I saw Then He Kissed Me, and I thought, that's not that girl song that's played on the oldies station, is it? And then he kissed me. And when it got to the song, I heard this. And my heart just dropped. I'm like, damn it. It just didn't match with how cool and badass the cover of the album looked. Because it looks sweet, and then you hear Then He Kissed Me, and it just seems like it's just a bad fit. Well, Kiss's version is Then She Kissed Me, but the original is Then He Kissed Me. By the way, I was too young to really understand what was going on the cover of the album. And even the name Love Gun, I had no idea what that was. You should have saw my dad's face when I asked him, what does Love Gun mean? But looking at the cover, you know, all the women in the front row of the stage and the way they're dressed, and I thought, I know I'm supposed to be attracted to them, but to me, they all look like Paul Stanley, but with big boobs. And I wonder if they added it because maybe they had 9 songs and they're like, okay, we have 9 tunes for Love Gun. We need 10 because 10 just sounds so round. It's a good round number. And then I have a feeling Paul's like, hey, I've got an idea. At least the band's name is in the title of the song, so I guess that's something. Number 9 is the song called Tomorrow and Tonight. It's a fun feeling song. It makes you feel good when you listen to it. It's real upbeat, you know. I just never loved the song. I always liked it. Even back in the day when I first heard it, I thought it sounded a lot like what the Brady Bunch would play if they were playing on stage. You know, there was a couple times in Brady Bunch episodes where they played musical numbers, and I always pictured the Brady Bunch singing that chorus. Tomorrow and tonight. And I wasn't sexist back then. I was too young to really understand anything, but I just thought, there's female backup singers on this song. This just isn't Kiss. Number 8 is the song called Almost Human. And what's funny about this song is it has some elements that are completely different than the other songs. Like right away there's this huge gong. And then there's congas in it. So it's kind of interesting to hear a congas in a Kiss tune. Of course, you get to like Dynasty and there's some in there, but it was weird for me to hear it on this album. And then Gene has this really ripping bass tone through the entire album, but this particular song, I think there's another effect on it. It sounds like an envelope filter. It's got sort of a slight wah to it, and it's a really cool sound. Speaking of the bass, listen to the volume compared to everything else, including the vocals. The bass guitar is like at 11, and everything else is at like 8. At least it seems that way to me. But I'm not going to complain because the tone is so cool. I think one of the best lyrics is in this song. It's when Gene says, wherever you run, I'm a scream away, or something like that. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but wherever you run, I'll be a scream away. That's super cool. And kind of scary. Number 7 is Got Love for Sale. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that because a lot of people love this song, but it just never hit me in the way that it seems to hit a lot of other people, except I do love that bass line. It's got this really ripping octave bass line. I'll try it real quick. I'll grab the bass. Okay, this bass is going through my guitar amp. I wasn't planning on playing bass, but let's see what happens. Something like that. There's some really great Ace Frehley moments in this tune, and I love at the end he does one of his patented motifs, one of his patented patterns. It goes like this. I think that's actually the same lick he uses in his brand new song called 10,000 Volts, the Ace Frehley solo song. Check that out. Okay, number 6 is a strange song called Plaster Caster. When I was young, I didn't understand what it meant, and I hated the name Plaster Caster. It sounded stupid to me. And when I got older, I learned what it really meant. There was this lady named Cynthia Plaster Caster who used to actually take plaster casters of rock stars' private parts. If I should be PG rated today, I'll put it that way. But it's funny because if you listen to the lyrics, it's hard to not know what he's talking about. You know, he's dousing it in innuendo, of course, like he always does. But in it, he says, "A token of my love for your collection." Just kind of conjures up this really freaky sight of like a whole display full of different rock stars just hanging out. Another lyric is, "If you want to see my love, just ask her." Could you imagine knowing this lady and being like, "Can I see Gene Simmons, please?" Pulls it out of the drawer. "Okay, how about Jimi Hendrix?" All right. All right, speaking of crazy lyrics, number 5 is Christine 16. Now, this is a song you couldn't write today. Right away, you would get canceled for it, but it seemed like it was okay to do back in the day. What threw me off as a kid, you know, I was so into rock guitar back then and drums, that when I heard the piano in the beginning, I instantly didn't like it as much as I should have. But that's balanced out with some real growly bass hits too. And even though I loved the song Beth back then, I just wasn't ready for piano in a Kiss tune. I'm realizing how finicky of a rock fan I was even at age 7. That is bizarre. Now listen to the tail end of the riff. All day I was thinking, where have I heard that before? And then it hit me, it's from Funky Cold Medina by Tone Loc. He actually sampled that for his song. Didn't Tone Loc also use the drum fill from Jamie's Crying by Van Halen? That guy was probably either a huge rock fan or his producer was, but that's pretty cool. Now, I don't really have to go into the lyrics too deep because just judging by the title, you know, it's pretty crazy. But when he says, "When I saw you coming out of school, I knew I had to have you." And I kept thinking, could you imagine if somebody today wrote those lyrics? And then he also says, "She's been around, but she's young and clean." I was just like, okay. Song number 4 is actually Hooligan. And I didn't really get into this song till way later in my life. I don't know why, I always skipped over it. But I've grown to love Peter Criss's scratchy vocals, you know what I mean? I don't know, he's got some sort of Rod Stewart thing going on when he sings. And the song has such a heavy groove, like right away when it kicks in, it just captures you. I remember thinking, Peter Criss's voice is scratchy like a cat's tongue. It seemed really appropriate. It's got the patented Ace Frehley I call that the hiccup bend release technique. I think I called it that on the 17 greatest Ace Frehley techniques video that I did. Check that out. You gotta love the chorus. "I'm a hooligan, won't go to school again." Now, when I was younger, I did love that part because I hated school. And so it was just a way for me to feel kind of punk rock, rebelling against the man at age 7. One of my favorite parts of the song now is Peter Criss's ad-libs at the end with his vocals. So he's just kind of going off, having fun. He's probably in the studio just trying a whole bunch of stuff, just yelling things out. Number 3 is Shock Me. I think I read that it's one of Ace Frehley's first tunes where he actually sang on it in the studio, and I thought that's such a great first song for somebody. I think it's a true story too. I think one time he got electrocuted on stage, and so he kind of wrote about that. And I thought about, I wonder how that affected his brain. You know what I mean? You never know if somebody gets a concussion or they get electrocuted, how that's going to affect them for the rest of their life. And who knows, maybe it made him a better guitar player. I don't know. You got to love that drum fill that starts off the tune. It's such a Peter Criss sound. You know, I used to practice that fill all the time, but it was on the ice cream buckets on my bed, so it didn't sound as cool. And then, of course, the riff. If you ever heard the song Lit Up by Buckcherry, I think they borrowed that riff pretty close, you know, if you listen and compare the two. Oh, yeah! One of my favorite groupings of notes is the solo part that goes like this. Okay, now we're to number 2, and that song is I Stole Your Love. The reason it's so high for me, besides it being a great song, is that it was the first tune they played at the very first concert I ever went to. I should say the very first big rock concert. So it was Slaughter, and then Faster Pussycat, and then Kiss came out. It was the Hot in the Shade tour. I was like, I don't know, 11 or something. And all of a sudden, bam, there they were in front of me. Bruce Kulick was on guitar. They kicked into I Stole Your Love, and I just remember hearing this riff and just feeling the electricity. That riff is followed by Eric Carr just rocking those toms, and then the big explosion, the fireworks, and then there was Kiss. I almost fainted. I didn't know about effects back then when I first heard the album, so I was really impressed when they put the delay on both the vocals and the end of the guitar solo. I always thought that sounded cool. What's great about the solo is it's very catchy, but the first half is actually Paul playing it. And I didn't realize that till way later, that it's Paul going like this. And then Ace kicks in on the next part. Another cool thing is the third harmony, the third vocal harmony that comes in at the last chorus really makes it. It's almost like it builds up throughout the song, and then at the very end you have 3 harmonies going, and it's just epic. Okay, and number 1, you probably guessed it, is the title of the album, Love Gun. I mean, what else is it going to be? That song taught me so much, when I was playing the ice cream buckets on my bed. It taught me how to play triplets, and it really taught me how to do really cool syncopated hits, both on the guitar eventually, but first on the drums. So going like this. It's a lot like the snare break part during the song One by Metallica, kind of taught me a lot of the same thing too. And then, of course, this pentatonic climb that is a lot harder than it seems. I thought it was just some kind of sequence like this. Kind of like a Kirk Hammett walk up, but it's actually a little more difficult. It goes like this. It's like if you don't get those slides in the right spot, it just doesn't work right. The main riff on its own is timeless, in my opinion. But then during the chorus, adding the chorus notes, when they're singing Love Gun, with the harmonies, and then also Gene's bass line. The way it skips around, it really glues it all together in a really interesting way. So you have this epic riff with these great vocal harmonies over the top of it, being supported by that drum beat and that bass line. It just gives you this magical feeling when it all comes together. Love Gun! So those are my picks for the top 10 for Love Gun, and I would love to hear in the comment section if you could go through and just tell me your order, like what you think is the worst to the best. I would love to read it, and I'm really interested to see what the consensus is. Hope you like this video, and I hope you like the idea for this series, because I'm going to keep doing it. Very excited about it. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.